Recently, I was asked by a new friend what my hobbies were, and I quickly responded that I didn't have any hobbies. And that was both sad and not really very true. Although most of my time does seem to go to household tasks and making meals and wrangling a 20-month-old, I do in fact have hobbies. It's just a matter of considering them to be as such. And these are things that I do find that energize me. This week, I picked up an old dormant hobby, sewing. Honestly, it's been about 10 years since I last sewed, and even then, it was a few throw pillowcases for my mom as a part of a homeschool makeshift home ec class that she threw together the day that she needed some throw pillows. I had to buy and learn a new sewing machine, and this one is honestly so much fancier than I meant to get, but it's been really fun to learn all the little things it can do. It's like way cooler than me. It can make its own buttonholes, it can sew on buttons, and it can do some serging. It is quite questionable, but it does at least attempt to do it. I decided that a good first project to do would be to make a toddler size duvet cover for my friend who was struggling to find a checkered cover that she loved and liked the fabric of. So, yes, I volunteered to make something I'd never attempted before using only a YouTube tutorial. I do think that the added pressure of it needing to be really good or at least acceptable for my friend was kind of nice for me, but it did take a lot of time troubleshooting, especially with the new machine. And I thought that because it was a checkered fabric and each check was about 1 inch or exactly 1 inch, it would kind of make it an easier project, when in reality, it definitely added to the complexity of making sure the lines were straight and making sure that I was getting everything exactly right. I do have one hobby that I have had for many years. I love to bake. Fun fact, in college, I actually had a cookie business, and although I've since retired from baking and decorating cookies on a weekly basis, I pride myself on making treats and baked goods that range from deceptively healthy, which I love to do as someone who really aspires to make healthy food choices, to downright street sugar. And this week, most of my creations definitely fell into the latter. I made a batch of my favorite chocolate chip cookies to go in the freezer. Half of the batch went to my sister and brother-in-law for their new house that they were moving into this week. I think that every house needs a batch of frozen cookies that can be thrown in for last minute guests or just like a little after bedtime treat, and I will stand by that. I also keep another dozen in a bag that I can quickly add to a meal I'm sending to a new mother or a sick friend. It's the perfect touch and allows them to decide when and how many they want to bake. And the salt that I add to go on top is such a hit, and it's so tasty and delicious, and I always get feedback that it was a really fun and easy dessert. Obviously, a lot of household tasks are a lot easier when my son is asleep. However, I do find that it's quite refreshing to have him in the room with me, even if it adds a little bit of stress or extra work, as I think that it allows him to learn a lot, and I love having him around, and he so enjoys being there. We also made some whipped cream and cut up some berries for dessert for my sister and brother-in-law at their new house. They did not have any furniture yet and had just signed the final closing documents, so we took a supply bag to them with plastic forks, paper goods, and just anything else I could think of that they may need over the next few days as they get situated in their new home and may not have access to all of their dishes or otherwise important things. I wanted to make sure that they had everything that they needed so they wouldn't have to worry, and also brought them a little goodie box, things for their first home together. We're really excited for them, and they live just down the road, which is an extra bonus. I truly believe that hobbies come in all forms, and I really am starting to think that mine may fall into the gift giving category in some ways, where I just want to create things that I can give away. I find it so fun to bring new little treats to my friends and family and just have them ready for when they come over. It's really nice to have something to be able to do on short notice. I do find it fun that somebody could find baking to be quite the chore or even sewing to be a chore, but for some people it is a hobby, and I think that it's a good reminder that sometimes things that we may consider to be just normal everyday tasks can be things that we find pleasure in doing. I'm not sure I was really finding this sewing project that pleasurable as I recorded these clips. This part was quite fun, and I was just following exactly what the tutorial I had found had told me to do, and was going so swimmingly. And then as I continued on, I realized that the edges were just not matching up. As I got to the point where I matched the two sides of the duvet cover together, there was just a trapezoidal situation happening. You can kind of see it right there. So I started to try and pin it together and see what was happening. I kind of just assumed that it was some kind of user error. I had to get my husband so we could grab all the sides, and no matter what I did, there was a wrinkle if they were lined up, and the wrinkle was on both sides. So I was quite frustrated about that and was trying to figure out how to troubleshoot it, and my husband was trying to come up with ideas. So we just kind of decided that the best thing for me to do at that point would be to just move forward and see what I could do about it on the fly. As I got down to the bottom, I realized that I might be able to create a pleat and kind of pleat the edge of the comforter duvet cover so that it would get the wrinkle to the edge at least. I was really concerned that this wasn't going to work and I would have ruined the whole project and needed to start over, but I was so far in, I had to continue. Unfortunately, my nightmare was not true, and I was able to continue without it being a big deal, and I was able to move on to sewing buttonholes and buttons and all the fun stuff. Again, my machine actually does those things for me, and I had never experienced anything like that. I spent hours doing this project because I would have to look things up in the manual and troubleshoot and figure out what in the world I was doing. I was feeling much better about it. The next day, my friend who the duvet cover is for came over and we were working on it together. She is not a sewer, but she is a good friend, and she took on the tedious task of putting on the snaps, which is how we decided to connect the duvet to the duvet cover on the inside to keep it from moving around. The ties would have obviously worked on the corners, but there wasn't a place to tie them to. Would I use snaps again? Probably not, but for this project it was really quite okay. We had both of our boys, who are about the exact same age, over and awake while we were working on this project. So the house was kind of a mess, and we were going back and forth between who was keeping an eye on the boys and making sure that they were sharing nicely. But it was really fun and sweet to have them all there and working together. The boys really wanted to help, so they were sitting with us a lot of the time. We did get quite close to finish while they were there, but I did have some finishing touches. I really wanted to try and do something about the edges so they wouldn't fray over time as the duvet cover got washed. And the work here is pretty darn far from a true sewist level, but it did the trick, and it definitely will keep it from fraying on the edges, which is really all we needed. This was such a fun project to finish up, and it was so fun. You get to take it to my friend's house and put it on the little boy's bed. Thank you so much for joining me as I explored some hobbies new and old. I will see you guys next time.